All right, we are back with another Drive Across 65. So, doing these recordings, putting our voices out there, putting our opinions out there, we really appreciate when everybody gives us the views, the comments, the interactions. We love it when you comment and you tell us what you want to hear. You agree or disagree with our takes, all that stuff. Absolutely love it. I have a lot of people that reach out to me individually and give me some constructive criticism over our content. If you could comment on it on the videos and stuff, that'd be great, guys. Appreciate it. Because when I relay the information to Pete, he thinks I'm crazy. Now, with that being said, and I know that's not the only reason you think I'm crazy. You sit back, sit back.
No comments?
With that being said, I have had a few people reach out to me individually and say, "Hey, I want to bet. I like sports. It's legal where I'm at now, but I don't know how to. I don't understand the terminology. I don't know what's what. I don't know why this is more expensive than that." With Massachusetts becoming legal now, sports betting becoming legal, there's going to be a lot of people who don't understand what's going on around them but want to participate. So we thought we would do a show based solely on terminology, less on strategy. We want people to understand what they're betting and why. And the whole basis of our show, I'm going to take a side step here. When you're playing poker, you have to invest money to gain experience. Okay, you're competing against other people for their money. Okay, it's an experience you have to pay for. When betting sports, you're not competing against the man sitting next to you. You're competing against the sports book, and that's a tough lesson for a lot of people to learn. I believe that how much money they invest and how much they essentially donate to the sports book before they realize what they're doing, and you shouldn't have to do that. All right, so we're going to do a quick little show. We're going to give you guys some terminology, give you all some ideas on how to bet what to stay away from. And I want to open it up with, I know, like I said, Massachusetts just became legal. I'm not 1,000% sure what apps or what sports books will be available. But in most scenarios, there are multiple sports books available to any demographic, i.e., Indiana. While we drive across 65, we can bet on different sports books. The reason that is important is because not all sports books place the same odds, same lines, same spreads. The prices aren't going to be the same. They're going to be close, but when you can find spots to save $1, save $10, save $5 here and there, those decimals, those units add up.
It's no different than when you're pumping gas in your car. Uh, Chevron, Shell, all these other stations, you might find, well, these days you're going to find something like $5, but you might find something a little bit further down the street that's 8 cents a gallon less. And the cost of you going to that station does not outweigh the money you're saving at that station. It's the exact same thing. Where you can save a buck or two, doesn't sound like much, it will add up.
That is the most beautiful analogy I've ever heard in my life. And that's exactly the point I was trying to get across. Okay. So you might see on Barstool Sportsbook, Alabama, the spread being 7 points. You might look on MGM and see Alabama and the spread being 6.5 points. If you're siding with Alabama, you're going to want to take the 6.5 points. Well, what does that mean? What is a point spread? Pete, tell me what a point spread is.
Okay, so basically the point spread is the sportsbook way of evening out their odds. So we mentioned Alabama. Let's say Alabama's playing South Carolina. Alabama is going to be the favorite to win that game. Most people would assume they're going to win. So if you were to bet $100 on Alabama to win, the sportsbook's not going to give you back $100 if you get that right because it's an expected result. So what they do is they put on a point spread. And using their own little algorithms, and everyone has their own, each individual book has their own, but they kind of run together enough that they come up with similar numbers. They're going to say that Alabama's going to win the game, and we expect them to win it by 21 points. Therefore, if you're going to take Alabama with the point spread, they need to win by 21 points for you to win that bet. If they win the game by 18 points, Even though you chose the team correctly, you will not win the bet. They have to clear that 21 number. In the opposite direction, if you took South Carolina, and this way you're getting them plus 21. And the minus plus, all that means is that's what they're starting the game with, so to speak. So if you have Alabama minus 21, it's kind of like they're starting the game with minus 21 points, whereas South Carolina starting the game with 0.
Or you can look at the opposite. You look at the final total and subtract or add that amount of points to the final of that team's result.
Exactly. So the favorite was going to have the negative points next to their name because that's what they need to make up. And then the underdog, in this case, would be South Carolina. They're starting the game with 21 points. That's plus 21. They're the underdog. So don't fall for that. Sometimes brand new bettors, they'll look at that and think the plus means good, favorite, the minus means bad, underdog. Not the case.
Great point.
So if you take South Carolina and they lose the game, but they do it by less than 21 points, you're going to cash out. So that's how point spreads work. It's fairly simple, but you do want to pay attention to it.
So, and that's the terminology, point spread, or they might call it a line. You might hear it say, what's the line on Alabama? It's -7. What's the point spread? -7. Same terminology, just different ways of saying it.
Yeah, what's the spread? What's the line? All that runs together. So we're talking about point spread. You can do what's called a straight up bet. Josh, tell us about that.
So if you're going to bet a team straight up, like Pete had mentioned, straight up bet, money line bet, ML, means that you're betting on that team to win the game without any help from any point spread. So hypothetically, in the same scenario that we painted with Alabama and South Carolina, if you wanted to take South Carolina to win the game straight up, you'll be getting, let's say hypothetically, plus 200. What does that mean? It means when you risk $100 and South Carolina wins, you will receive $300 back off your investment plus 200, $100 or $200 more than your $100 bet. Okay. Now to go the opposite way, hypothetically, let's say Alabama is minus 200. That means you will have to wager $200 to receive a $100 profit, $300 back in your pocket in order to cover that money line bet.
And understand all this is proportional. You do not have to bet $100. You can bet $10 and it's the same situation. You just chop off a 0 at the end of each thing, at the end of each number. You can bet $5. It's all proportional. 100 is such a clean number. It's the cleanest number in math, potentially. And everything works off that $100 number to where you want it to be. So let's say it's minus 200. You have to bet 200 to win 100. If you want to win $20, so to get from 100 to 20, you divide 5. You take that 200 divided by 5, and that's 40. So you'd have to bet 40 to win 20.
And a lot of people, that's where it gets confusing because they say, oh, what did you bet? Well, I put $200 to win 100 on Alabama. Well, why would you automatically just give up $100 like that? It's not how it works. It's just weird phrasing and terminology. 200 gives you a return of plus $100, $300 total.
Right. And all that, again, is based on algorithms. They're designed to get everybody to... Here's the thing with point spreads, line bets, especially point spreads. They're designed so that 50% of the public bets one way, 50% of the public bets the other way, and that would give the sportsbook an automatic edge. And we'll talk about why that is in just a moment. But to get something where you have to make a decision, Alabama, South Carolina, unless you're seeing something that most people aren't, you know Alabama's going to win that game. So that said, why does 50-50 benefit the house?
Oh, because there's a thing called juice. Is that the direction that you're
Juice
heading in?
is one way to call it. They call it juice. They call it vig. There's all sorts of other things they call it. But especially for point spreads, generally speaking, when a point spread is set, so you have the Alabama minus 21 and South Carolina plus 21, it's the minus 110 is where the juice comes in. That's common. It's not every single time. But the idea being that if Josh wants to take Alabama, he bets $110 to win 100. I take South Carolina. I bet $110 to win 100. One of us is going to win. One of us is going to lose.
Well, where does the other $10 go, Pete?
That goes to the sports book. So they take that small little juice over the course of many, 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 many bets, and they get their profit that way.
It's an insane, awesome strategy developed by the sports book. If you're on their side, you're basically just holding money, and whichever way you got to pay the other person out, you're getting 10% of whatever anybody profits or loses.
But all that said, we're not worried about their hold. We're worried about getting you and getting ourselves and whoever else wants to listen the right information so that you get that money. Let them collect the juice from someone else.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What we gonna hit next, Pete?
Well, so we're talking about the result of the game. Alabama winning by 21 or losing by 21. There's a way to bet two teams playing in a game and not worry at all about who wins the game.
Ooh.
And that is betting the total score of the game, otherwise known as the over-under. Let us know about that.
So you hear the exactly what he said. Somebody might say, "What's the over under?" or "What's the total?" What those two signify, and I'll give you examples of basketball and football. Let's say hypothetically, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills are playing, and the over under quote unquote total is 49. What you're going to wager is whether you think the combined score at the end of the game is over 49 or under 49. If it hits exactly 49, it's a push. You get your money back exactly. Okay. So that's also a juice situation where you split the public, the sports book splits the public, and they make the money there. It's weird terminology because you hear over under, then you hear total. Total sounds more scientific, I feel like.
Sort of, yeah. It's simpler. It's just one word. But that is the idea. Josh nailed it. It doesn't matter who wins. You're not looking for a win or a loss. You're looking for a higher scoring game or you're looking for a lower scoring game. So that is a nice way to get a game. And so a game like Buffalo, Kansas City, that's a great example. Those are two tough teams. They play each other tight all the time. The game can go in either direction as far as winner or loser. But if you think it's going to be a high scoring game, you're not worried about that. You're just betting on offense. And you cash it that way without having to worry about who wins.
And it's the same thing when it comes to basketball. If the total is between the Lakers and the Rockets, 220, you combine the two scores at the end of the game, and that will be your result. If it's 110 to 115, the final score total will be 225. That means it goes over 220. Same with baseball. If a total is set at 9 and the final score ends up being 8 to 5, that equals 13. It went over 9. It's the same science. It's the same math in every sport, just the numbers vary.
Right, and baseball is one place where you really can't take advantage of over-unders based on pitching matchups, based on strength of bullpens, things like that. Baseball's tricky as far as picking winners or losers. Any team can beat any team, any game. Then one of the greatest teams of all time, as far as record goes, was we're going to go way back here, the 1906 Chicago Cubs. They still lost a quarter of their games, and you're not quite sure where or when they're going to lose those games. But if you want to go for an old school example, you got Greg Maddux going up against Pedro Martinez. Give me the under on that one. I'm not sure who's going to win the game, but those pitchers are lights out, and those Braves teams and those Red Sox teams had decent bullpens as well. So to see a final score of 3-2, not knowing who's going to have the 3, who's going to have the 2, but it's sitting under the 8.5 that the sportsbook put up, you're walking away with the money.
All right. So and just to combine the 4 different things we've talked about so far, as far as shopping, point spread, juice, and all that, if the total is set at 49 and it says minus 115, that means you're going to be wagering, however your units go, 115 to win 100 on that over. Okay, so the juice varies along with the point spreads.
And the great thing about these sports books are you don't necessarily have to calculate these things on your own. You're welcome to do it if you want, of course. But if you're looking to make a $20 bet, you're more concerned about the amount you're wagering versus the amount you're winning, you type in 20 into the box on the sports book, and it'll let you know what you're getting paid out. So it always lets you know what you're getting with your money. So when you win a bet with the sport, you're basically giving the sportsbook your money. So let's say you bet $110. You're giving them $110. If you win the bet, they return the $110 and they add on the $100 that you won. So it'll say total win $210. So don't misunderstand that to mean that's what you're winning in total. That's what you're collecting in total. So you're winning. So you want to subtract what they're giving you from your original bet to let you know how much you're winning.
All right, so I think we covered a lot of the basics, a lot of the terminology, the why, the who, what, and the where, and the wow. We've been doing shows on futures. A lot of people kind of on the fence on that may not understand. Pete, tell me what a future is.
Yeah, we have been concentrating the majority of our show on futures. That is, I mean, don't overthink it too much on the name right there. It's something that's going to be happening in the future, not necessarily the next game. So when the Chiefs are playing the Bills this week, so to speak, that's not a future. That's happening next. The future is what's happening over the totality of time. So we're going to say we think Kansas City is going to win 12 games this year. They haven't played one yet. And you're going to take that in advance, and you got to wait. You know, the future bet doesn't come to fruition within the same day or the same week, but you wait it out. They're long-term bets to say what's going to happen over the course of time. That's what we've been doing with our NFL picks. You can take a future on who's going to win a championship, who's going to be the number one pick in the draft, things like that.
So, with that being said, we've been throwing around the phrase team total a lot, okay? Now, there's two different ways. I don't want to confuse anybody. There's two different ways to look at team totals. You can say, like Pete said, the Kansas City Chiefs team total is set at 11.5. He thinks they're going to win 12. He's going to take the over. That's for future picks. Now, as far as a daily play, you could take a team total of their actual score. All right, so that separates the over-under. If you think one team's going to score, you're not sure about the other one, i.e. the Kansas City Chiefs. If their team total for that night is set at 27.5, and you think they're going to score at least 28 points, that is their team total, okay? So there's a lot of phrasing that gets mixed together in sports betting that we just want to make sure that everybody's clear on.
They do get mixed together because they go hand in hand in a lot of ways. So a future bet is the same thing as an over-under in a manner of speaking. And that said, speaking of over-unders, another way to look at over-under are what's called proposition bets, also known as props. Josh, what you got for us on props?
All right, so we did a whole episode on props as far as player props. And you can look at them from the longevity of the season, like we did with Julio Jones and his receiving yard props, or individual games. Hypothetically, let's go Tom Brady. His passing yard prop is set at 280 yards. You're looking at over-under play. It's just the same terminology as we opened up with, just with the word prop in front of it.
Absolutely, and that would be dependent on that particular game. So let's say Tampa Bay is playing Chicago, and you think that they're going to jump out to a lead and not throw the ball as much in the second half. You maybe take the under for that game. You're not betting on Tom Brady having a bad game necessarily. You're just betting that his passing yard total will not increase. It will not go beyond what the sportsbook set up for you, and you would take an under. There's all sorts of different strategies you can do there. And it's not just for players. You can do team props as well.
Right, correct. So you can look at go ahead, give them some examples of player props, Pete.
More player props you can do is just amount of touchdowns a player is going to score. Pardon me. If you think Miles Sanders is going to score a touchdown today for the Philadelphia Eagles, go ahead and find what the line is, and they're going to give you. So it'll be like something like over under half of a touchdown. Of course, you can't score a half a touchdown. So the idea is if he scores no touchdowns, you're under, and if he scores one, you're over. If you're convinced he's going to score a touchdown today, go bet it. And something like that might give you some positive juice, we'll call it. Something like plus 125 if you bet $100 to win 125, or you bet $10 to a profit $12.50. Of course, they give you back the full $22.50.
Genius. And you were on such a roll, man. I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just like, go with it, man. We're going to talk about parlays next. Pete is a parlay expert. I'm going to let him just have the platform.
So parlays, I don't want to bog anybody down too deeply into the math. The casinos, the sportsbooks, whoever is offering these wagers have these numbers for you. But the idea of a parlay is you're taking more than one pick at the same time. And you can do, we're just going to stick to single sport parlay for the time being. So this week, you look at the NFL schedule and you look at the point spreads and you fall in love with 3 games. You love, I'm just going to go ahead and pick a team at random. Oh, the 49ers.
You had me. I thought you was really going to.
So you pick the 49ers, you pick the Steelers, and you pick the Bills. And those 3 teams you really, really like to cover the point spread that the casino is offering you. So instead of betting $10 on each game, or let's just say $11 on each game, if you win all 3 of those games, you make $10 off of each one. You've made $30. That sounds awesome. But if you have that kind of confidence, what you can do is set up a parlay. And you take all 3 teams on one ticket. And a ticket is basically your bets, your combined one-time bet. Here is the great benefit for that. If you get all 3 teams right, you get a much bigger payout. The way parlays work internally is that, let's pretend all those 3 games are happening at different times. So you win the $10 bet on the 49ers, you take those entire winnings, and you move it on to the Steelers game. You win that game, you take those entire winnings, and you move it on into the Patriots game. And when that wins, you get the payout for that. So some $10 bet would probably win you about $80, give or take. Much better than the $30 you made off a $33 bet. So what's the catch? The catch on the parlay is you do have to get all the games correct. You lose one, the whole thing loses. So parlays are benefits to you when you have that confidence level. I would never recommend taking a 3-team, 4-team, 5-team. You can build these parlays as big as you want. I wouldn't recommend taking those on games that you don't have the confidence level on. Go ahead and either fade those games, or when you bet them on their own. Bet them with smaller amounts of money. The parlays are there for you to try to make a quick score, but not in such a blind fashion that you're just taking a risk out of nowhere. You got the information. You feel confident. If you didn't feel confident, you wouldn't put the money up anyway. So feel that confidence. And if you put up 4 different parlays in a week, let's say they're all 3 teams, and you get one of them right, and you get 3 of them wrong, you're still coming out ahead.
I like it. Pete, you have been going off, sir. Take a breath. I'm going to take the same game parlay from you. Get you a drink. Cool down, man. You've been going in. All right. So sticking with the parlays, okay, there's a such thing you call it parlay plus, same game parlay. A lot of different sports books have different names for them. And it's essentially the same thing that Pete just explained flawlessly, okay, with parlays. In the same game parlay, you're taking quote unquote player props, okay? So let's say let's stick with the 49ers. I think you like those guys.
They're okay, you know.
All right, so let's say I like Trey Lance's passing yards over, Deebo Samuel's receiving yards over, and I like the 49ers to cover -7.5 against the Broncos. I'm probably going to know that, by the way. You can do the same thing as you would spreading your bets out between different teams, like Pete just lined out, and you can do it within the same game, okay? And it'll give you the same different type of odds as Pete laid out as the parlays. You can get real technical with it and really confuse yourself. I might just tinkle that just for a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Trey Lance's passing yards, Deebo's over receiving yards, and the Broncos to win the game. That will increase your same game parlay odds because you have 2 bets going one way and then 1 bet going against yourself. Just something to think about.
All right, and same game parlays is a nice way if you feel really locked into a game. Let's go with that Bills-Chiefs argument again. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think the Bills are going to win. Take them both. Take the Bills on the point spread. Let's say they're -3.5. Over under 49.5. You like both of them. Take them both. It pays you usually about 2.6, 3.2 to 1, depending on the juice they offer. It's not always, again, we mentioned, it's not always -110. Sometimes it's 106, sometimes it's 112, give or take. But if you feel locked in on a game, you like total, you like winner, same game parlay.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we will be doing, if you guys want to lock in and tell us, this segment right here, pay a lot of attention to. We will be doing what we call Pete's Picks, okay? So the sports book is going to lay out a line. We'll call it, again, San Francisco -7 against the Broncos. Let's say Pete thinks not only does San Francisco win by 7, he thinks they're going to win by 14. Okay, there's a way that you can do a teaser or create an alternate line. I'm gonna let Pete take that away. He is a master at it. It's insane.
So here's the way I went with alternate lines. I come up with what I think a point spread is gonna be before I ever look at it. And it's not just based necessarily on my opinion. It's based on what I think the line is going to be coming out of Vegas. Been doing this for a long time. Even before I was 21, I loved following point spreads. My buddy used to call me on Tuesday morning with the LA Times in front of him, and he'd give me the game, and I had to guess the line. And if I got it within 1 point in either direction, it was yay for me. And if I missed it by more than that, it was too bad for you. And I started off with a lot of too bad for yous, and then I started getting better. So I'm decent at predicting what I think the line's going to be. Then I come up with what I think the score is going to be, what the result's going to be. So let's say I think the 49ers are going to be -7.5, but I think they're going to win by 14, and the line comes out and I missed it completely. It's the 49ers by 4. You can move the line either in your favor or to your detriment. So if you got 49ers -4, that's what the sportsbook think it's going to be. If you move that and say San Francisco -8, you're technically doing that to your detriment. You're making it harder on yourself to win. Therefore, you get bigger odds. And if you find 4 or 5 games in an NFL week, and this is something I love to do, you find 4 or 5 games, you move the line to your detriment. You make it harder on yourself to win. You pick 5 games, you lose 3, you win 2. You made money.
Pete, it is insane how many times we've been at a casino in a sports book, and Pete's like, Steelers are only 3. I think they win by 10. And then they end up winning by 14. He moved the line himself. He placed his bet. He didn't get even money on his bet. He didn't go 100 to win 100. He put up 100 to win 400 on him moving the line and came out ahead. It was insane to watch. It's so awesome to watch.
And you're gonna lose some of those. And the frustrating thing with that is that this is when it happens sometimes, where you have Pittsburgh -4.5, and you move the line to 7.5, and they win by 6, and they get it right in that in between area where if you took the original bet, you would have won, but by moving it, you lose. You're gonna have those happen sometimes. But over the course of time, if you're sharp enough and you're paying enough attention and you believe in yourself and the way you'd want to make these bets, that that outweighs the losses you have there are outweighed by the wins you realize doing that.
Or if you don't believe in yourself, but you believe in #DriveAcross65, you believe in Pete's Picks, I'm going to say this again. You should never have to pay to learn lessons against the sports book, and that's why we're here, okay? And that's why we're feeding the information out, because we want it to be available to everybody so they have a fighting chance. The sports book's been winning long enough. With that being said, Pete, you're going to take us on to some odds boosts and some promotions and whatnot as far as opening up new accounts and whatnot. Oh, teasers. We missed out on teasers. So teasers and alternate lines kind of go hand in hand.
They do. The alternate line, as we mentioned, is putting the onus on yourself. You are betting against yourself to your detriment. As far as the line goes, not your result. So teasers are a form of parlays. So let's say you take 2 teams and they're both 7-point favorites, and you tease the line down. What does that mean? That means, let's say we'll get something called a 6-point teaser. There's a 7-point teaser. This time the line moves. So they're 7-point favorites, both teams. On a 7-point teaser, that 7 goes away. And now you're just taking both teams to win. If they were both 10-point favorites and you take a 7-point teaser, you now have them at 3 points instead of 7. You're basically subtracting the amount of the teaser, which is 7, down to 3. In the opposite way of the way alternate lines work, instead of getting a bigger payoff, you're now going to get a smaller payoff. Generally speaking, 2-team teasers pay even money. Again, juice being what it is, not always the case. But if you like 2 teams, but you think the point spread's high, or you think they're going to win outright, and you just don't know if they're going to cover the spread, take the teaser. I wouldn't recommend going too big on teasers as far as the number of games. 2 is a good number. 3 can work. After that, acts of God being what they are, teasers don't protect you against blowouts. So let's say in the opposite direction, the team's a 10-point underdog, and you want to make them a 16-point underdog. That sounds great, but if they get blown off the field that day, you don't have the protection. So don't go too deep on the teasers. 2 or 3 teams. Make your money back. Those are for games where you might have a little bit less confidence in your picks, but you have the confidence that the team's going to win. We're going to talk about teasers. We'll do teasers. It's not our favorite. Alternate lines, it's kind of my jam. I think I've created some converts on that, Josh, to a degree as well. But those are teasers for you.
I'm such a fan of watching his brain just go to work and him coming up with lines. I'm like, you're crazy, and then it pans out. It's awesome to watch. Now, if you notice, I wanted to say this before we get into odd boosts and promotions and whatnot. Everything we've said interlocks. Okay, everything is based off another. So point spread, juice, over under totals. They go hand in hand with parlays, teasers, and all that. Everything's the same thing. It's just intimidating, and it sounds confusing. It's really not. Everything is pretty black and white. It's pretty simple. So we're going to hop into, like I said, Massachusetts just legalized sports betting. You got NFL coming up. You'll be registering your accounts with your different sports books, and they're going to throw some offers at you that sound pretty crazy, but they're actually really reliable, and it's a way to get ahead to start the season.
Right, and you got me thinking when you were talking about that. I want everyone to kind of think back and imagine the first time, if you can remember sitting behind the wheel of a car, how intimidating that was. Which one's the gas? Which one's the brakes? What do all these things do? What's a gear shift? And now you get in your car and you drive without thinking about it. And this is similar to how this works. It's really intimidating at first. It really is. Neither one of us or anybody was born with this knowledge. This is something you read about, you learn about, you put into practice, and it becomes second nature to a certain degree. So that said, this is for startup, and when a sports book opens up in your area, you are by default going to be a new customer. So new customers do get all sorts of offers. We're going to start off with odds boosts. Those aren't even necessarily for new customers. Those are for returning customers too. But they're basically specials. They're sales. Target has
Buy one, get one.
yeah, buy one get one, or 6-pack of soda is $4. Today it's $3. That's essentially how it is. A game that would normally be minus 110, they offer it at even money. Which, by the way, plus 100, we should mention. When it's plus 100, all that means is even money.
Right.
You bet 100 to win 100. If you take a certain parlay, normally it would be plus 260. Today it's plus 340. You earn those from the sportsbook usually, but with your consistent betting, they give you offers. It's like getting coupons in the mail. I'm old. It's like getting coupons on your phone.
Are you talking about email?
Yes, email. So those are odds boosts. Promotions. Promotions are something like if you bet $25 on the Reds Cubs game, for every run that's scored in that game, you get a $2 free bet. How does the way free bets work? So let's say that game is 10-9. So we scored 19 runs, multiply that by 2, you now have a $38 free bet. It's not money you can collect. It's money you have to bet. And if you win the bet, you can then collect it. So you like that game, they're giving you a promotion on it. then you can get a free bet out of it. Now, second chance betting. This is something that's almost exclusive for when you're a new customer. During the NFL season last year, you may have seen commercials for Caesars Sportsbook and other sportsbooks where they're saying your first bet is free. They're not lying to you. Your first bet is technically free in that if you lose the bet, you don't lose the money, but there is a catch to that, of course. So let's say they offer you a $1,000 free bet. That means up to $1,000. You do not have to risk the entire $1,000. So you got $100. You want to bet Chiefs Bills, and if you win the bet, cool. You win the bet, you collect. If you lose the bet, you get a second swing, so to speak, at that $100. If you win that bet, all you collect are your winnings. You don't get the $100 back, but they give you another chance at it. So let me tell you a story about somebody I know who did something like this. Let's say a free $500 free bet.
Ooh, I wonder who this is.
It's actually, it's actually a friend this time. So someone that took a $500 bet on a game he thought was going to clear for sure. It didn't. Something happened during the game, and the team fell apart, and that team lost. So that $500 was able to be rebet. Had that game been won, player would have collected $1,000. The bettor would have collected $1,000. Took a second chance at it, won the second one, got the $500 back. So that's how that works. Again, I want to completely emphasize that the number they give you is not the number you have to bet. It's just the maximum. So $1,000 first bet, that sounds intimidating. You don't have to go all the way through with it. Caesars for All is actually doing $5,000. I think enough people hammered them on that, and they dropped down to one. So don't be afraid to read about the offers they provide you. Most sportsbook will have a section. It'll be like offers, promotions, whatnot. It'll be a tab. It'll be something on your account. Take the time to go through those. 2 or 3 minutes at a time at most. If you're keeping up with it often enough, it won't even take that long. And see where you can find discounts.
Guys, I believe that wraps us up for this episode. Like I said, we've had people reach out and say, I want to bet what's a spread, what's a total. I hope we covered all that. I hope you guys are understanding. Follow along. Comment on the videos, guys. Let us know what you think. Let us know about the content that's coming out. If you have questions that you're embarrassed to ask, absolutely feel free to DM me. It's Pineapples Don't Go on Pizza at the Joshua Sharp on Twitter. You can find us everywhere at #DriveAcross65. Did you know this, Pete, that Pineapples Don't Go on Pizza was a fact?
I've heard something along those lines over the past number of episodes. Guys, I just want to mention one thing too on the way out the door. That could have been a little overwhelming with a lot of information at once. Please, if you want clarification, we are not shy about spending the time to go over things. And then we hit about an hour on this video. I couldn't even believe it. I looked at the time and I was shocked. I can't believe we did an hour. It felt like about 20 minutes. I'm like, this is going to be a short episode. It turned out to be a normal length. If we went too fast somewhere, if we left something ambiguous, come at us, holla at us. We love to hear from you. We really do. In a former life, I was actually a teacher, so this is right up my alley. So anytime you guys need anything, please, we'd love to hear from you.
And it did go an hour. I was just as shocked as you did, as you was when you pulled up the time. But nevertheless, the hour of your day today, or spread out however you look at it, is going to save you hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands of dollars of sports bets and mistakes. Take it from me. I've definitely made those mistakes in the past, and I wish I had somebody to educate me going in. Take your time, listen to the episode, re-listen to it. If you still don't understand it, reach out. Pineapples Don't Go on Pizza, #DriveAcross65.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.